I collapsed at my desk in Denver. Hemorrhagic stroke. The doctors later told me I was less than 48 hours away from permanent brain damage. Or death. My mother, Marissa Clark, got the call at 7 a.m. By 9:30, she was standing in the ICU at St. Luke's Medical Center. By 3 that afternoon, she decided my sister's wedding venue tour in Maui couldn't be postponed. By 6:45 p.m., my entire family was boarding a flight out of Denver International Airport, headed for Hawaii. I spent 7 days in the ICU alone, or at least, that's what I believed. When I finally opened my eyes, the nurse handed me the visitor log. One name appeared every single night, a name I didn't recognize. A man who stood outside my glass door for 3 hours the first night, just watching. A man who quietly paid my entire $168 hospital bill and instructed the hospital not to reveal who he was. The look on my mother's face when she saw that name told me everything she had buried for 32 years. But this didn't start in a hospital room. Every Sunday at 6 p.m., my phone rings. Not because my mother misses me. Not because she wants to hear how my week went. Sunday at 6 is when Marissa Clark calls to review expenses. "Monica, sweetheart," she'll say, her voice dipped in that sugary tone she saves for requests. "Your father's truck needs new tires. That's $620. And Ashley's wedding planner needs a $3,100 deposit. Oh, and the utility bill ran high this month. Can you add another $450? I do the math while she's talking. 620, 3,100, 450. That's $4,170, on top of the $1,200 I already send every month. Mom, that's over $4,000. I just transferred money last week. Her voice tightens, just a fraction. You don't have a family to take care of. No husband, no kids. Ashley's getting married. She needs support. You make good money, Monica. What exactly are you spending it on? I want to say, my rent in Denver, my student loans, the savings account I keep draining so I can keep rescuing all of you. But I don't. I never do. I'll transfer it tomorrow. Tonight would be better, she replies smoothly. The mechanic closes early on Mondays. After she hangs up, I open the Excel spreadsheet I've kept since I was 25. 7 years of records. Every wire transfer, every emergency, every temporary loan that was never repaid. I scroll to the bottom. $214,600. $214,600. I make $138,000 a year at HelioGrid Energy Incorporated. After taxes, that's roughly $100,000 take home, which means I've been sending home about $30,000 a year, nearly a third of what I actually earn, for 7 straight years. I scroll through the reason column. Ashley's car payment, Ashley's credit card, Ashley's apartment deposit, Ashley's vacation to Cabo, Ashley's dental work, Ashley's designer handbag for a networking event. 90% of the entries have my sister's name next to them. My phone buzzes again. A text from Ashley Clark, a picture of a wedding dress. Strapless lace, dramatic train, something out of a luxury bridal magazine. "Isn't it stunning?" she writes. "It's $7,200. Mom said you'd help with the dress." I stare at the screen. "And I'm going to need $35,000 for the wedding fund," Ashley added in her next message. "You're the maid of honor. You should be contributing more than anyone." $35,000. I stared at the number until it stopped looking real. Then I typed the same sentence I always do. "I'll see what I can do." A heart emoji popped up almost instantly. Of course it did. Later that evening, my mother called. "You're going to love Maui," Marissa said, her voice bright with excitement. "The Four Seasons in Wailea has this incredible infinity pool. Ashley found it on Instagram." "I can't go, Mom. The IPO is in 3 weeks. I can't leave Denver right now." A sigh. "Oh, Monica, it's always work with you. Work, work, work. Ashley wanted you there to help choose the venue." "I thought this was just a scouting trip." "It is," she replied quickly. "But since you're not coming, the least you can do is cover the trip. Your father and I certainly can't afford something like this." The least I could do. She broke it down like she was reading a grocery list. Flights for 3, $3,600. 7 nights at the resort, $4,900. Excursions, dinners, deposits, roughly $2,900. Total, $11,400. "I'll transfer it tonight," I said. "Thank you, sweetheart. You know how much this means to Ashley." Yes, I did. After I sent the wire, I checked my balance. $4,870. 11 days until the IPO. 11 days until my stock options vested. About $340,000 if HelioGrid went public successfully. 11 days until I could finally breathe. I just had to survive 11 more days. That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror doing something I'd done since I was a teenager. Comparing. I'm 5'9". My mother is 5'4". My father, Brian, is 5'8". Ashley is 5'5". I have blue eyes. They all have brown. My hair is light brown, almost blonde in the summer. The rest of them have dark hair, nearly black. When I was 16, I asked my mother why I looked so different. She stared at me like I'd accused her of something unforgivable. "What exactly are you implying, Monica?" I never brought it up again. My phone buzzed. An email from Ethan Caldwell, CEO of HelioGrid. Timeline accelerated. IPO moved to November 28th. I need the operations audit completed by the 15th. You're the only one I trust to handle this. November 28th. 2 weeks earlier than planned. I closed my eyes. 11 days just became less. The weeks that followed dissolved into fluorescent lights and lukewarm coffee. Our CFO quit 3 weeks before the IPO. Ethan handed me everything: investor decks, compliance reports, due diligence packets, financial summaries. I was at my desk 16 hours a day, sometimes 18. 4 hours of sleep if I was lucky. Protein bars instead of meals. My doctor had warned me during my last physical. "You need to slow down, Miss Clark. Your blood pressure is not normal for someone your age." I didn't slow down. This IPO meant nearly $14 million in funding for HelioGrid. 40 employees were counting on it. My equity would finally vest. All I had to do was hold on. Another email from Ethan lit up my screen. "I know this is a lot, but if we miss this window, we lose everything. You're the only one I trust." My head had been pounding for 3 days straight. I blamed stress, dehydration, too much caffeine. I reached for my water bottle. My hand missed. I tried again. My fingers wouldn't close. The words on my screen began to blur, sliding out of place like someone was rearranging them in real time. I need to call someone. I reached for my phone. My arm didn't respond. The last thing I remember is the cursor blinking on an unfinished sentence. And then, the floor rising up toward me. Darkness. The security guard saw me collapse on the hallway camera at 11:52 p.m. By 12:03 a.m., I was in an ambulance. By 1:15 a.m., I was in the emergency room at St. Luke's Medical Center in Denver. Diagnosis: hemorrhagic stroke. The ER physician called my emergency contact at 1:15 a.m. No answer. Again at 1:47. Still no answer. The ER doctor tried again at 2:30 a.m. No answer. Again at 5:45 a.m. Still nothing. At 7 a.m., my mother finally picked up. I don't remember the ambulance ride. I don't remember the emergency room. I don't remember the breathing tube, the scans, the needles. Everything I know about those first hours came later, from hospital notes and from the nurses who watched it unfold. Room 412, 4th floor, ICU. Glass walls facing the hallway, monitors pulsing in steady rhythm, fluorescent lights that never dimmed. My phone sat untouched on the bedside table. 4 missed calls from St. Luke's to Marissa Clark. No return call. The nurse's log read, Patient Clark, Monica. Emergency contact notified at 0700. Family arrival, ETA, 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours. My parents live in Lakewood. It's a 25-minute drive. They arrived at 9:30 a.m. My mother, my father, Brian, my sister, Ashley. They stayed 33 minutes. I was unconscious, but the security footage recorded everything. And later, Nurse Emily Carter filled in the rest. Ashley never came into my room. She stayed in the hallway scrolling on her phone, complaining that the hospital smell made her nauseous. My father stood off to the side making calls. To who, I still don't know. My mother spoke with the attending physician for 11 minutes. Then she stepped into my room, looked at me, eyes closed, tubes everywhere, and checked her watch. At 10:03 a.m., they left. 33 minutes. Emily told me what happened next because she overheard my mother in the hallway before they walked out. The doctor said she's stable, my mother said into her phone, probably to Ashley. Stable means she's not dying right now, right? We can still make the flight. The tickets aren't refundable. Monica paid for them. A pause. I know, but Ashley needs this trip. The wedding is in 3 weeks. If we don't scout venues now, when will we? Monica will understand. She's always been the responsible one. Stable. What the doctor had actually said was, stable, but critical. We need at least 72 hours of monitoring. There's still a high risk of complications. My mother heard one word and ignored the rest. At 3:15 p.m., while I lay unconscious in room 412, she left me a voicemail. I listened to it 5 days later, 14 seconds long. Monica, sweetheart, the doctor said you're stable. Your father and I and Ashley still have to go to Maui like we planned. The tickets are non-refundable. I'll call the hospital every day to check on you. Just rest, okay? Ashley really needs me for this trip. We'll be back next week. 14 seconds. She didn't say, I love you. She didn't say, I'm scared. She said, Ashley needs me. And then she hung up. At 6:38 p.m., while doctors were prepping me for additional scans because my blood pressure was dropping again, Ashley posted an Instagram story, a photo of the 3 of them at Denver International Airport, Gate C-24, Hawaiian Airlines to Maui. My mother smiling, my father looking exhausted, Ashley in the middle flashing a peace sign. Caption, Maui, here we come. 127 people viewed that story in the first hour, including one person they never expected. At 8 p.m., a man walked into St. Luke's Medical Center. He approached the front desk. I'm here for Monica Clark, room 412. The receptionist glanced at her screen. Are you family, sir? Yes. Your name? Daniel Whitmore. He was issued a visitor badge. He took the elevator to the 4th floor, walked down the ICU corridor, and stopped in front of my room. He didn't knock. He didn't ask to be let in. He didn't even speak to a nurse. He just stood there, outside the glass, looking in. The hallway camera recorded everything. 8 p.m. A man in a gray suit, silver hair, early 60s, stops outside room 412. 8:15 p.m. Still standing. 8:47 p.m. A nurse approaches. He shakes his head gently. She walks away. 9:30 p.m. Hands in his pockets, eyes fixed on the glass. 10:15 p.m. He finally sits in the hallway chair, but he never looks away. 11 p.m. He stands again, presses his palm flat against the glass, holds it there for 4 long minutes. 11. 12 p.m. He walks away. 3 hours and 12 minutes. Nurse Emily Carter, 34 years old, 12 years in ICU, was the one who approached him at 8:47. "Sir, can I help you? Would you like to go inside?" He shook his head. "No, I just want to make sure she isn't alone." "Are you family?" He hesitated. Something passed across his face. Pain, regret, maybe both. "Yes," he said quietly. "I'm family." Emily handed him the iPad to sign the visitor log. He nodded and wrote his name, Daniel Whitmore. Then he stepped back to the glass. Nurse Emily told me later, "I've worked ICU for 12 years. I've seen every kind of family, screaming, crying, praying, fighting over insurance forms, but I've never seen a man stand outside a glass door for 3 straight hours like he thought he didn't deserve to walk in." He came back the next night at 7:45 p.m. Same gray suit, same silver hair. This time he brought a laptop. He sat in the hallway chair with a MacBook balanced on his knees, screen angled away from the corridor. Every few minutes he'd glance up at room 412, then back down at whatever he was working on. At 9:30 p.m. he closed the laptop. He stood, and this time he walked inside. Emily watched from the nurse's station. He pulled the visitor chair close to my bed and sat down. He didn't touch me, didn't take my hand, didn't brush the hair from my face. He just looked at me for a long time. Then he said something, too quiet for Emily to hear through the glass. Later, when she asked him what he had whispered, he gave her a sad, almost broken smile and shook his head. He stayed 47 minutes. Then he left. Emily documented it in my chart. Visitor Daniel Whitmore stated, "My daughter," upon entry. Relationship to be verified with family. She called my mother to confirm. No answer. She tried again. Nothing. A third time. Voicemail. That night, she reviewed the visitor log. November 18th, Daniel Whitmore, 8 p.m. to 11:12 p.m. November 19th, Daniel Whitmore, 7:45 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. No Marissa Clark, no Brian Clark, no Ashley Clark. Just Daniel Whitmore. A man no one in my family had mentioned. A man who had quietly referred to me as his daughter. Emily told me later, when someone you love is dying, that's when people show you who they really are. Your family? They barely stayed half an hour. But that man, the one who stood outside your door like he was afraid he didn't belong, he came back every single night. She paused. I didn't know who he was to you, but I knew one thing. He cared. On the morning of November 20th, Dr. Laura Bennett ordered another CT scan. Something wasn't right. My vitals were technically stable, but they weren't improving. The swelling in my brain should have started to decrease. It hadn't. By 9:30 a.m., the results came in. Secondary myocarditis. Inflammation of the heart muscle triggered by the massive stress response from the stroke. If we don't operate within 48 hours, Dr. Bennett told Emily, she has a 40% chance of not waking up at all. 40%. The cardiac procedure would cost approximately $58,000, with total hospital charges already approaching $168,000. They needed family consent. Emily called my mother for the 7th time since I'd been admitted. This time, someone answered. Hello? Marissa's voice sounded relaxed, cheerful. In the background, waves, music, the faint clinking of glasses. Mrs. Clark, this is Emily Carter, ICU nurse at St. Luke's Medical Center. I'm calling about your daughter, Monica. Oh, yes, my mother replied lightly. How is she? Still stable? Ma'am, there's been a complication. She needs emergency cardiac surgery. The doctors have identified inflammation around her heart. If we don't operate within 48 hours... What kind of surgery? My mother cut in. And how much will it cost? It's a cardiac procedure, estimated at $58,000. Silence. Then, $58,000? Is insurance covering that? In the background, I could hear Ashley's voice faintly through the phone. Mom, the surf lesson starts in 10 minutes. Emily swallowed. Mrs. Clark, we need a family member to sign the consent form, and the hospital requires a deposit before 6 p.m. today to schedule the surgery. Another pause. Email me the form, my mother said finally. I'll sign it electronically. And regarding the payment, send the bill to Monica's address in Denver. She makes good money. She can handle it. Emily later told me her knuckles turned white gripping the phone. Ma'am, she said carefully, your daughter is in a coma. She can't authorize or pay anything right now. She has savings, my mother replied. I'm sure she does. Look, I can't exactly fly back this minute. Our return tickets aren't until Monday. Just do what needs to be done. Monica's always been good at figuring things out. And then the line went dead. 12 miles from St. Luke's Medical Center, in a corner office overlooking downtown Denver, Daniel Whitmore received a phone call. It was from Ethan Caldwell, CEO of HelioGrid Energy Incorporated. Mr. Whitmore, I wanted to update you. Monica Clark, our director of operations, she's still in the ICU. The hospital says she needs emergency heart surgery. Something about inflammation. Daniel's grip tightened around the phone. How much? I'm not sure of the exact number, Ethan admitted. They're requesting a deposit. Her family is apparently in Maui. A brief silence. Yes, sir, Ethan added quickly. I'll handle it. No, Daniel said evenly. I'll handle it. Don't mention this to anyone. Sir, you don't need to understand. Focus on the IPO. Click. The call ended. Then Daniel made one of his own. Patricia Hall, director of billing at St. Luke's, had worked in hospital finance for 16 years. She'd seen everything. Insurance denials, payment plans stretched over decades, crowdfunding campaigns, even the occasional envelope of cash from people who didn't want paper trails. But at 3:30 p.m., her computer chimed with something she had never seen before. Incoming wire transfer, $168,000. From Whitmore Capital Partners. Memo. Full payment. Patient Monica Clark, room 412. Anonymous donor. Do not disclose identity to patient or family. $110,000 allocated for ICU care. $58,000 for cardiac surgery. Paid in full. Patricia stared at the screen. She pulled up Monica Clark's file. Emergency contact. Marissa Clark. She looked back at the payment source. Whitmore Capital Partners. A firm managing $4.1 billion in assets. Not Marissa. Not Brian. Someone else. She dialed the number attached to the wire transfer. A deep, calm voice answered. Daniel Whitmore. Mr. Whitmore, this is Patricia Hall from St. Luke's Medical Center. I'm calling to confirm your payment for Monica Clark. It's confirmed, he replied. The funds have cleared. For our records, sir, I need to verify your relationship to the patient. A pause. Family member. Can you be more specific? Are you her... I'm her father. Patricia glanced back at the file. Father, Brian Clark. She cleared her throat. Sir, our records list Brian Clark as the patient's father. Another pause. Longer this time. There's more than one kind of father, Ms. Hall. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Please process the payment and make sure Monica receives the surgery she needs. I don't want her to know who paid. Not yet. The line disconnected. Patricia leaned back in her chair. She looked at the wire confirmation again. $168,000 settled in full. Then through her office window toward the ICU wing. Down the hallway outside room 412, she could see him. Silver hair, gray suit, laptop closed on his lap. Eyes fixed on the glass door. That man, she murmured under her breath, is the only family that girl has. At 5:45 p.m. Denver time, my mother finally emailed the signed consent form. Attached was a short message. I've signed. I expect insurance to cover most of the expense. If there's any remaining balance, please send it directly to Monica Clark at her Denver address. She earns a good salary. Marissa Clark. She didn't ask how risky the procedure was. She didn't ask about my chances. She assumed I would pay my own medical bills, while unconscious, while possibly dying. Patricia read the email twice. Then she glanced at the system showing the account already cleared. $168,000 paid in full by an anonymous donor. She hit reply. Mrs. Clark, the account has been settled in full. No balance remains. She offered no explanation. Let Marissa wonder. I don't remember being wheeled into surgery. I don't remember the anesthesia. I don't remember the incision or the 4 hours and 23 minutes I spent on the operating table while Dr. Laura Bennett repaired the damage to my heart. But I know who was there. Daniel Whitmore sat in the surgical waiting room from 6:45 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. He didn't read. He didn't check his phone. He didn't open his laptop. He just sat there, holding something in his hand. During her break, Nurse Emily walked past and noticed him, alone, staring at the wall. In his hands was a photograph, old, slightly faded at the edges. A woman in her early 20s, dark hair, laughing at something just outside the frame. He ran his thumb gently along the edge of the picture, over and over again, like a prayer. At 11:23 a.m., Dr. Laura Bennett stepped into the waiting room. The surgery was successful. She's stable. We expect her to wake within 24 to 48 hours. Daniel stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. For a second, he looked like his legs might give out. Thank you, he said. His voice broke on the second word. Are you family? Doctor, Bennett asked. Yes. Would you like to see her in recovery? He hesitated. No, not yet. She should see her family first when she wakes up. The doctor frowned slightly. Sir, you are family. Daniel gave that same quiet, fractured smile Nurse Emily had noticed before. The kind that carries years of silence inside it. He slipped the photograph back into his wallet, picked up his coat, and walked out of the hospital. He didn't stay to see me open my eyes. When I woke up, all I saw was white ceiling, Fluorescent lights. The steady beep of machines. I was alive. I turned my head slowly. Every movement felt like dragging broken glass through my veins. And the chair beside my bed? Empty. No flowers, no cards, no balloons that said, "Get well soon." No family member sleeping awkwardly in a vinyl chair. Just empty space. On the bedside table sat a full glass of water. At the foot of my bed, a blanket folded with military precision, and next to it, a book. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Hardcover. Worn but carefully preserved. I didn't own that book. I'd never read Marcus Aurelius. Where did it come from? Nurse Emily stepped in to check my vitals. "Miss Clark, you're awake." Her smile wasn't polite. It was relieved. "How do you feel?" "Like I got hit by a truck," I croaked. "How long?" 5 days. You had a stroke, then surgery for a cardiac complication. But you pulled through. You're going to be okay. 5 days. Where's my family? Her smile faltered. They're in Maui. They'll be back Monday. Maui. I remembered vaguely the venue trip. I'd paid for it. $11,400. They didn't come back? Your mother called several times, Emily said carefully. She signed the consent forms electronically. Called, I repeated, but didn't come? No. I stared at the ceiling. The water, I said suddenly. The blanket, the book. Who brought those? Emily paused. There was a man. What man? He came every night while you were unconscious. My throat tightened. He said he was your father. My father is in Maui. Emily set the blood pressure cuff down. Miss Clark, this man wasn't Brian Clark. He gave a different name. He came every single night, stayed for hours. The first night he stood outside your door for over 3 hours without coming in, just watching through the glass. Something cold moved through my chest. What was his name? She handed me the iPad from the nurse's station. He signed the visitor log, every night. You can see for yourself. My hands were still weak, trembling as I scrolled. November 18th, Daniel Whitmore, 8 p.m. to 11:12 p.m., November 19th. Daniel Whitmore, 7:45 p.m. to 11:30 p.m., November 20th. Daniel Whitmore, 7:30 p.m. to 10:15 p.m., November 21st. Daniel Whitmore, 7 p.m. to 11:45 p.m. No Marissa Clark, no Brian Clark, no Ashley Clark. Just Daniel Whitmore, every night. Who is Daniel Whitmore? I whispered. Emily looked at me carefully. He said he's your father. I borrowed her laptop. My fingers felt clumsy, but I managed to type. Daniel Whitmore, Denver. The search results loaded. Daniel Whitmore, 63, founder and CEO of Whitmore Capital Partners, private equity firm. Assets under management, $4. 1 billion. There was a photo. Silver hair, blue eyes. Standing in front of a glass-walled office tower. Confident posture, controlled smile. I stared at the screen. Blue eyes. I have blue eyes. My mother has brown eyes. Brian has brown eyes. Ashley has brown eyes. When I was 16, I asked my mother, "Where do my blue eyes come from?" She snapped at me. "Why are you asking questions like that?" My grandmother, she said, had brown eyes too. I'd never seen a single photo of her. Now I was staring at a man on a screen, with eyes the exact same shade as mine. The blue was identical, the same shade, the same clarity. My hands were still shaking, but I kept searching. If you've ever had a moment that cracked open everything you thought you knew about your family, I read every story. Whitmore Foundation Scholarship. A polished website appeared on the screen. Clean, understated, professional. I clicked on Higher Education Awards and scrolled through past recipients. 2012, Monica Clark, University of Colorado Boulder. 2013, Monica Clark, University of Colorado Boulder. 2014, Monica Clark, University of Colorado Boulder. 2016, Monica Clark, Wharton School, MBA program. My name. Right there. The scholarship. The anonymous scholarship I'd received during my sophomore year. The one that paid for my final 2 years of undergrad and my entire MBA at Wharton. No interview, no essay, no explanation. It had simply appeared, and my mother had hated it. "You think you're so special because you got that scholarship," she used to say. "Don't let it go to your head. You just got lucky." Lucky. It wasn't luck. It was Daniel Whitmore. I looked at the book resting on my bedside table. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I opened the cover. On the first page, in careful handwriting. "To my daughter. I hope one day you'll understand why I stayed away. D.W." The words blurred. I realized I was crying. I grabbed my phone and called Ethan Caldwell. "Monica, you're awake? Oh my God, we've been—" "Ethan," I interrupted. "I need to know something. Who is the largest investor in Heliogrid?" A pause. "Why are you asking that?" "Whitmore Capital invested in Series A, didn't they?" Silence. "Monica, how did you—" "When?" 2021, he admitted quietly. "Series A, $2.4 million. The year I joined Heliogrid." "Did Daniel Whitmore request anything specific when he invested?" Another silence. Longer. "Monica, I don't understand what this has to do with—" "Did he?" Ethan exhaled. "He asked to remain anonymous. He specifically requested that his name never be mentioned to employees, and he asked to be notified if anything ever happened to you." My chest tightened. "If anything happened to me?" "Yes," Ethan said quietly. "He called me the night you collapsed. Security escalated it to senior investors within minutes. You're director of operations in the middle of an IPO. When something like that happens, the board gets notified." He paused. He was already on that alert list. I closed my eyes. So he knew. Ethan hesitated. He was one of the first. A beat. "Monica, who is this man? Why does he care about you so much?" I looked down at the book in my lap, at the words written in ink. "To my daughter." I swallowed. "I think," I said slowly, "he's my father." Day 7. Monday morning at 11:30 a.m., my mother walked into the lobby of St. Luke's Medical Center. I didn't witness it, but security cameras did, and later, Nurse Emily filled in the details. Marissa Clark was glowing from 7 days under the Maui sun, tan, relaxed, wearing a floral sundress and sandals, a duty-free shopping bag dangling from one hand. She approached the front desk. "I'm here for my daughter, Monica Clark, room 412. I need to sign her discharge papers." The receptionist, a young woman named Carmen, pulled up my file. "Of course, Mrs. Clark. Let me check the account status first." "Account status?" my mother asked sharply. "The billing. I need to confirm there's no remaining balance before discharge." My mother's jaw tightened. "Send the bill to Monica's Denver address. She'll handle it." Carmen stared at her screen. "Ma'am, the account has already been settled in full." My mother blinked. What do you mean settled? Through insurance? No, ma'am. A family member made a direct payment. $168,000. My mother went completely still. What family member? I'm not authorized to disclose that information. The donor requested anonymity. Donor? She repeated. No one in my family has that kind of money. Let me see the visitor log. Who's been coming to see my daughter? Carmen hesitated, then handed her the iPad. My mother scrolled. November 18th. Daniel Whitmore. November 19th. Daniel Whitmore. November 20th. Daniel Whitmore. November 21st. Daniel Whitmore. November 22nd. Daniel Whitmore. November 23rd. Daniel Whitmore. No Marissa Clark. No Brian Clark. No Ashley Clark. Just Daniel Whitmore. Carmen told me later it was like watching someone see a ghost. All the color drained from my mother's face. The iPad slipped from her hands and hit the floor. She didn't bend to pick it up. She just stood there. Daniel Whitmore, she whispered. Ma'am, are you all right? Carmen asked. My mother didn't respond. She knew that name. She walked toward the ICU wing like someone walking to her own sentencing. Slow steps, shaking hands. When she turned the corner, she froze. 20 feet away, seated in the hallway chair outside room 412, Daniel Whitmore. He looked up. Their eyes met. 32 years. That's how long it had been. He stood slowly, not approaching her, just standing there, waiting. Daniel, my mother whispered. Her voice barely carried. He didn't answer at first. When he did, his voice was low, measured, controlled, every word deliberate. 32 years, Marissa. Daniel's voice was calm, controlled, but every word carried weight. 32 years my daughter believed she wasn't loved. 32 years I stood outside the glass, looking in. Every night this week I've been here, watching over her, paying her bills, making sure she wasn't alone. He stepped forward, just one measured step. And where were you? My mother opened her mouth, closed it. Nothing came out. You were in Maui, he continued quietly, on a vacation your daughter paid for, while she was dying in this room. Daniel, I didn't know. You knew enough, he cut in. The hospital called you. The nurses called you. You knew she needed surgery. You knew she needed family. His voice never rose. It didn't need to. And you chose Hawaii. He looked at her with something colder than anger. For 32 years, I stayed away because I thought it was better for her. I thought she had a family who loved her. I didn't want to disrupt her life with the truth. A beat. I was wrong. His jaw tightened. She didn't have a family. She had parasites. My mother's face crumpled. Daniel, please. I'm done staying away, he said. I'm done standing outside the glass. He turned toward my room. Today, I walk through the door. My mother stood frozen in the hallway. I was sitting upright in bed when she burst in. She looked sun-kissed, but shaken. Tan skin couldn't hide trembling hands and frantic eyes. Monica, we need to talk. I looked past her toward the glass door. In the hallway stood a man, silver hair, blue eyes, watching. Who is he? I asked. Who? The man in the hallway. The one who's been here every night. The one who paid $168,000 for my surgery. I held her gaze. The man named Daniel Whitmore. The color drained from her face. Monica, listen to me. Is he my father? Silence. The kind that answers everything. Mom, I whispered, is Daniel Whitmore my father? Her eyes filled with tears. It was 1992, she began softly. I was young. I made a mistake. A mistake? I loved him, she said, her voice cracking. God help me, I loved him. But he was nobody back then. A junior engineer. No money, no stability. And then his company sent him overseas for 2 years without warning. He just disappeared. She sank into the visitor chair. I found out I was pregnant. I didn't know what to do. Brian had already proposed. He had a house, a steady job. He was safe. So you married him. I had 6 weeks to decide, she whispered. I chose security. I chose stability. You chose to lie. I chose to survive, she snapped. Do you know what it's like being 23 and pregnant and alone? Daniel was gone. I didn't know if he'd ever come back. Brian was there. Brian would never leave. I stared at her. When did Daniel find out? She looked away. He came back 2 years later, but by then you were already 1. I was married. I told him you were Brian's daughter. I told him he had no rights. Did he believe you? I made him believe me, she said quietly. I threatened to call the police if he contacted me again. I told him I'd ruin him. My stomach twisted. And he stayed away? For 20 years, she admitted. Then somehow he found out. Maybe a DNA test? Maybe he hired someone. He started reaching out through attorneys, through intermediaries. He wanted to meet you. And you? I refused. You refused. I told him you had a family, she insisted. You had a father. You didn't need ancient history confusing your life. Ancient history. I laughed, and it hurt. Mom, you've been punishing me my entire life. Now I understand why. What are you talking about? Every time you looked at me, you saw him, I said. Every time I succeeded, it bothered you. I wasn't supposed to succeed. I was supposed to be your reminder, your mistake. But I kept growing. I kept thriving. And I kept reminding you of the man you chose not to wait for. That's not true, she whispered. You made me pay for everything, I said, my voice trembling now. Over $214,600 in 7 years. Every time Ashley needed something, you called me. Every time there was an emergency, you called me. I swallowed hard, because punishing me was easier than admitting what you did. Her eyes widened. And the worst part, I continued, my chest tight with emotion, is that all this time, there was a man out there who wanted to be my father. A man who paid for my college without ever taking credit, who invested millions in my company just to be near me, who stood outside my hospital room for 3 hours because he wasn't sure he had the right to walk in. I pointed toward the glass door. That man has been here every single night. My eyes burned. And you were in Maui. My mother opened her mouth. I didn't have a choice. Yes, you did. My voice was steady now. You've always had a choice. In 1992, you chose to lie. Last week, you chose Hawaii. You chose Ashley. You always choose everyone. Except me. Monica, please, get out. She blinked. What? Get out of my room. Go home. Tell Brian the truth. He deserves to know. And tell Ashley she's not getting that $35,000. And don't come back. She rose slowly from the chair. You don't mean that. I looked at her. The woman who carried me for 9 months and then spent 32 years trying to erase half of who I was. I spent my entire life trying to earn your love, I said quietly. I paid your bills. I funded your vacations. I gave you everything you asked for. My voice cracked. And you still chose to let me die alone. I nodded toward the door. Now I'm choosing someone who chose me. She didn't argue again. She didn't apologize. She didn't say goodbye. She walked out, her heels echoing down the hallway. I watched her disappear through the glass, and then I watched someone else walk in. Daniel Whitmore, 63 years old, silver hair, blue eyes. My eyes. He stopped about 10 feet from my bed, close enough to see me clearly, far enough to give me space. Neither of us spoke at first. The monitors kept their rhythm. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Outside the room, life and death moved in constant rotation. Inside, it was just us and 32 years of silence. I don't know where to start, he said finally. His voice was deeper than I expected. Calm, but layered with something fragile underneath, like a man holding back a flood. Start with the glass door, I said. The first night. Why didn't you come in? He looked down at his hands. Because I didn't know if I had the right. He inhaled slowly. For 32 years, I watched you from a distance. Your high school graduation, I sat in the back row. Your college graduation, I watched the live stream from my office. When you finished your MBA at Wharton, I sent flowers anonymously. He gave a small, sad smile. Every milestone in your life, I was there. Just never where you could see me. Always outside, always behind the glass. He met my eyes. When I walked into the ICU that first night and saw you through that window, tubes everywhere, machines keeping you alive, I thought, this is my daughter, and I don't even know if she would want me here. My throat tightened. But you stayed, I whispered. 3 hours. I couldn't leave, he said simply, and I couldn't walk in. So I stood there, just to make sure someone was there for you, even if you never knew. Tears slid down my face. I didn't wipe them away. The scholarship, I asked softly. That was you? He nodded. 2012. I had just confirmed the DNA results. I didn't know how to approach you. I didn't want to disrupt your life. So I created the foundation. I made sure you qualified. And Heliogrid? The Series A investment? He said gently. That was me too. 2021. The year I joined the company. I wasn't investing in the business, he admitted quietly. I was investing in the chance to stay close to you. When I saw you were working at Heliogrid, Daniel continued, I invested $2.4 million in the Series A. He gave a faint, self-aware smile. Not because I was certain the company would succeed, although it has. I did it because it was a way to be near you, even if you never knew. And the $168,000? I asked quietly. That, he said, almost gently, was easy. You were dying. Someone had to step up. You could have walked away, I said. You could have left it to my mother. Your mother? He repeated the words carefully. She's been dealing with it for 32 years. He didn't raise his voice. Dealing with it by treating you like a reminder of her worst decision. Dealing with it by taking your money and giving nothing back. dealing with it by boarding a plane to Maui while you were in surgery." He shook his head slowly. "I couldn't walk away. Not anymore." There was a pause between us. "I need to ask you something," I said. "Anything." "Your wife, your family. Did you ever—" "I was married for 15 years, he said. Divorced in 2017. He hesitated. "She told me I was never fully present. That part of me was always somewhere else, with someone else." His eyes held mine. She wasn't wrong. "No children?" I asked. He shook his head. "No. I already had a daughter, one I wasn't allowed to know. Starting over with someone else felt like betrayal." The weight of that settled between us. "You gave up your whole life," I said slowly, "for someone you couldn't even call." "No," he corrected gently. "I gave up certain things, but I built others. The firm, the foundation, the investments. I told myself that even if I couldn't be your father in public, I could make sure you were never limited by money, by opportunity." His voice softened. "I know it's not the same as being there. I know it doesn't erase 32 years, but it was what I could do." I swallowed. "What happens now?" He drew in a steady breath. "That's your decision. I've waited 32 years. I can wait longer. I can walk out of this room right now and never interfere with your life again. If that's what you want." "Is that what you want?" I asked. His voice cracked just slightly. "No." He held my gaze. "I want to be your father. I want to know what you're reading, what you're building, what makes you laugh. I want to have dinner with you on your birthday. I want to be the person you call when something goes wrong." A beat. "But I understand that I haven't earned that. You have a father, Brian, even if he's not your biological one. This is complicated and painful, and there aren't easy answers." I looked at him. This man who had funded my education, protected my career, and stood outside a glass door because he wasn't sure he deserved to step inside. Then I thought about the empty hallway where my mother had walked away. "My whole life," I said slowly, "I thought love was something I had to earn." I stared at my hands. "I paid their bills, funded their vacations, solved their crises, and they still left me here alone." I looked back at him. "You didn't owe me anything. I didn't even know you existed." My throat tightened. "And you still showed up, every single night." I reached out my hand. "Will you sit down?" He stepped forward carefully, as if the moment might shatter, and he sat in the chair beside my bed, the chair that had been empty for 5 days. For the first time in 32 years, he was on the right side of the glass. I was discharged from St. Luke's Medical Center on November 26th, 2 days after my mother's visit. Daniel drove me home to my apartment in Denver. We didn't talk much during the drive. We didn't need to. We had 32 years of conversations waiting for us. There was no rush. I signed the final IPO documents via video call from my living room. HelioGrid went public at $16 per share. My stock options vested at just over $340,000. For the first time in my adult life, I had money that was actually mine. Money no one could guilt me into wiring away. Ashley's wedding was scheduled for December 6th. It never happened. Without my $35,000 contribution, the numbers unraveled fast. The venue contract required proof of full funding 2 weeks before the ceremony. My mother had already submitted my pledge in writing. My contribution had been listed as part of the confirmed budget. She tried to downsize the venue, cut the guest list, simplify the catering. But her fiancé's family wasn't thrilled about the sudden adjustments. The engagement ended 2 days before the ceremony. My mother called, over and over. "Monica, please. Your sister needs you after everything we've done for you." I deleted the voicemails before she could finish the sentence. Everything they'd done for me. On December 10th, Brian moved out and filed for divorce after finally learning the truth, that the woman he'd loved for 32 years had married him as a safety net, that the daughter he'd raised wasn't biologically his, that his entire marriage had been built on a lie. He didn't yell. He didn't break things. He packed a single suitcase and checked into a roadside hotel. He called me once. "I'm sorry I wasn't there more, Monica," he said quietly. "I always felt like there was something missing between us. Now I know what it was. I hope you find what you're looking for." I wished him well. He was a victim too. I met Daniel for coffee on December 20th. It was awkward in the way new beginnings often are. We didn't know each other's habits yet. Didn't know if we took cream or sugar. Didn't know favorite books, favorite movies, childhood stories. But we were learning. At one point, he pulled out his wallet and showed me the photograph Nurse Emily had seen him holding in the surgical waiting room. My mother, 23 years old, laughing at something just out of frame. "I took this in 1992, he said softly. 2 weeks before I left for Singapore. It was the last time I saw her happy." He traced the edge of the photo with his thumb. "The last time I was happy." He slipped it back into his wallet. "I carried that picture for 32 years, hoping I'd see that laugh again someday, hoping I'd recover what I lost." He looked at me then. "I didn't find her." A small pause. "I found something better." His eyes softened. "I found you." People say blood is thicker than water, but my blood family left me in an ICU room while they boarded a flight to Maui. They took over $214,600 from me in 7 years. They treated me like an ATM with a pulse. And a man I had never met stood outside a glass door for 3 hours because he wasn't sure he deserved to walk in. He paid for my education without ever asking for recognition. He invested millions in my company just to be near me. He paid $168,000 to save my life and asked the hospital to keep his name quiet. So who is family? The people who share your DNA but treat you like a burden? Or the one who waits outside the glass for 32 years, hoping to be allowed in? My mother chose Maui while I was dying. Daniel chose to stay, every single night, even when he thought I would never know. If you're in a family that makes you feel like love is something you have to earn, that drains you, guilts you, takes and takes without ever giving back, ask yourself one question. Who is standing outside the glass door of your life, waiting to be let in? And who is already boarding a plane to somewhere else? The answer might change everything. For most of my life, I believed love was something you earned. If you paid enough bills, if you sacrificed enough, if you proved your worth over and over again, then maybe you'd finally be chosen. But lying in that hospital bed changed everything. Love is not a transaction. It's not a debt you repay. It's not something you beg for with loyalty, money, or silence. Real love shows up. It sits in uncomfortable chairs. It answers midnight phone calls. It walks through the door, even when it's scared it doesn't belong. I spent 32 years trying to earn love from people who only saw me as an obligation, and I almost missed the person who chose me without conditions. If there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this. You are not required to bankrupt yourself, emotionally or financially, to keep people who treat you like an option. Pay attention to who stays when you have nothing to offer. Pay attention to who stands outside the glass when you can't stand for yourself. That's your family. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is stop chasing the people boarding a plane and open the door for the one who never left. If this story touched something deep inside you, if you've ever loved people who only loved you when you were useful, I want you to pause for a moment. Take a breath. Who showed up for you when it really mattered, and who didn't? Your story might be the one someone else scrolling through needs to read tonight. You never know who is sitting quietly behind their own glass door, wondering if they matter. If Monica's journey moved you, please like this video. Not for the algorithm, but because every like pushes this message a little further to someone who needs the reminder that love should never feel like a transaction. Share this with someone who has been carrying too much for too long. And if you believe that family is defined by who stays, we tell stories about truth, boundaries, healing, and the courage to finally choose yourself. I'll see you in the next story.